March 31st is a good day for stubborn government stupidity. Now, you may be saying the entire calendar furnishes such days, 365 of them and an extra one in leap years. And you'd be right. But this one stands out to me because it is the date in 1774 that the Port of Boston Act became law, a response to the Boston Tea Party, a protest against infringement of liberty that doubled down and really took away the liberty of the Englishmen in Massachusetts. It was just one of 4 intolerable acts. They closed the Port of Boston to commercial activity. They suspended the normal operations of justice, particularly for British officials. They took away the right of the inhabitants of Massachusetts to be governed by a legislature of their own choosing, and they quartered soldiers in the houses of the inhabitants. And every one of these was a poke in the eye to the inhabitants of Massachusetts, who were very self-consciously were Englishmen and Englishwomen, because it was a systematic deprivation of the liberties of the English. And it followed on a series of other acts that had appeared to demonstrate contempt for those liberties, those ancient liberties. Things like the Stamp Act in 1765 that infringed the right guaranteed in Magna Carta, that there would be no taxation without the general consent of the kingdom. And when there were gathering protests, organization, these committees of correspondence, and then that particular night when the tea was dumped in the harbor, the British had a choice: to continue in the stupid way they were going, or to take a deep breath, recognize that they were not being true to their traditions, and find some creative act of statesmanship that would have allowed the colonists across the Atlantic to have their own legislatures with the same powers as the British Parliament, because it simply wasn't practical for people that far away, especially in the age of steam, without telegraphs, telephones, or typing with our thumbs, to be represented in the British Parliament. Had they been allowed to elect members to the British Parliament, they would clearly have gone away and rapidly become agents of the central government, not representatives of the people who'd elected them. And I find this very illuminating because the British Prime Minister Lord North said, basically, it is time to find out whether we have any authority in the colonies or not. And I do see his point. London was being challenged in Boston and elsewhere. But North needed to think more deeply. Should we have the authority to do what we are doing? Have we ever had the authority to do these things in England? And the answer would have been it was claimed periodically by tyrants and would-be tyrants like Oliver Cromwell or James I. But no, this authority has never existed for a government of the English to treat the English as though they did not have rights. And to me it's revealing, and it casts a light on the present day, because people in government are so sure that they know better, that when they're told they're infringing traditional rights, their response so often is, oh, but the people don't understand. And if the people cannot force them to acknowledge their rights, those rights will be gone. Now, in the case of the Port of Boston Act and the other intolerable acts, the result was a disaster for the British. And it's funny to see because, the colonies in British North America, like the United States, in some ways really is a community of communities composed of people who regard one another with suspicion and distaste. Virtually everybody else hated the Puritans. They thought they were meddlesome killjoys, and not without reason. But when the British closed the Port of Boston to commercial enterprises, people started sending goods from the Carolinas and from New York. They simply were sending free stuff to the people of Massachusetts because they understood that their liberties were all menaced by a threat to their liberties anywhere. And the British government should have understood this, because if they could do this in the colonies, they could have done it in Britain as well. And after the Revolution, too late, they came to their senses. It's why we got self-government so easily. But it took a lot of blundering, and particularly this extraordinary doubling down in the Port of Boston Act, a glowing, monumental piece of government stubborn stupidity, back on March 31st, 1774.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.